Hi and welcome back to part 3 of this fabric top Telemaster build. In part 1 we made the fabric top, in part 2 we made the maple body, and today we're going to be pulling this all together with some binding, and we're going to be carving out the neck pocket and also the pickup cavities as well. So first things first, if we're going to add binding to this, I've got some cream binding which I think will look alright. So when I poured this, it's probably just a little bit too keen with how much epoxy I used, so it's just a little bit too thick with what we've got with the epoxy, the little layer of 3mm MDF, and then to hit the body as well. So I just need to start off by sanding this back a bit to get this to a nice level, which is going to work for me. So first things first, let's get this on the table and get sanding.
Now last week one of my viewers recommended I get one of these routing mats to stop my work sliding around the table as I'm using a router, which probably seems like a good idea. So I picked this up and got to say, massive game changer. So if you want to check this out, then I will leave a link in the description below. It's absolutely massive and it makes a big difference. I may have also treated myself to something else, but don't pay attention to that, don't look at that. You didn't see that. Now it seems fairly counterintuitive to scuff up a nice clean fabric top, but it's got to be done. Hopefully I'll be able to get it back to a nice shiny finish at the end with lots of polish and lots of elbow grease. The binding that I'm going to be using for this project is about 6mm, so you can definitely get thicker binding, which would have made my life much easier, but I don't really like the look of it, so we're going to go for 6mm binding, and that's what I normally use, and that's what I'm going to stick to. Now sanding epoxy does make an awful lot of really fine dust, and I've got to say, having this thing hooked up to a Festool dust extractor is game changing. Look at that routing mat, it's so clean, and I've been doing this for about 20 minutes at this point, so it's not cheap, but it definitely does the job. And as I'm sanding, I'm just stopping periodically just to see how I'm going, making sure I'm not going to go too thin in any areas, and stopping as soon as I've got enough to be covered by the binding. Now you can buy expensive binding routing bits, but I've spent all my money on Festool things, so we're going to bodge this. Now the last guitar I added binding to, I just took this router bit and added a load of tape over the bearing just to set the right depth for the cut for the binding. So it worked last time, so I'm going to try it again. But last time I did it, I wasn't filming it and I wasn't opening myself up to the criticism of the internet, so we'll see. Now, I didn't want to be a complete idiot and try it on the body straight away, so I thought I'll take an offcut of the maple that I used to make the body and just check everything's dialed in nicely before I take it over to my nice fancy guitar. As you can see, that's made a channel that is 6mm by 1mm, which is perfect for this, and I actually got this first time. It's amazing when that happens. Really satisfying. Now time to take it over to the guitar body and make the actual cut. Now if you watched my video last week, you see I had a few issues with the router, so I'm a bit nervous with it this time, but hopefully everything's going to go nice and smoothly this time, because we're only taking a tiny amount off. But I am routing epoxy, which isn't something I do every day, and is a bit of an unknown, so there's still space for something to go wrong. Okay, you can relax, that went smoothly. We've got a nice channel all the way around the guitar body, and it's ready to receive the binding. Now the thing is, because I'm working with epoxy and I don't really know how it's going to react, I think there is a chance that it's going to go wrong. So before I start adding the binding, I want to make sure I route out all the cavities on the top of the guitar before I start doing that, because then it just means I can minimize the amount of work that goes into it before I inevitably mess up. So to make my life easy, I'm just going to whack out a quick template on my laser cutter, and that'll help me just make sure all the cavities are in the right alignment and where they need to be. Unfortunately, I can't cut out a full guitar body on this cutter, so I'm just going to chop the wings off and just really focus on the bit that is important to me for this part of the process. Making sure to remember to vent the toxic fumes out of the garage and point them at my neighbour. I can then turn the laser on and just stare at it, because that's my favourite thing to do these days. Here you can see what I meant by chopping the wings off. Hopefully you can see that all the important parts that I need are there, and I've got enough of the outline to reference against the body to make sure everything's in the right place. Then we go from fancy Festool sanders and laser cutters to my £10 eBay drill press. It's seen better days. It arrived to me in a pretty rough state, but I grew those cobwebs myself. I'm just going to hog out all the cavities, just roughly, leaving me to do minimal cleanup with the router later. I didn't really know how the epoxy was going to react. It's really easy to drill through actually, no real issues. I was also worried about the fabric somehow getting tangled in, but because it's locked down in the epoxy, you just don't have that issue, so it's actually a really easy process to go through. Well, I say it was easy. It was all straightforward round at the pocket for the neck pickup, but as soon as I switched to looking at the bridge pickup, we had a problem. The throat of the pillar drill isn't wide enough, so I can't actually carve this out with a drill. So to get around that problem, I'm just going to use my drill stand, and that will allow me to have the flexibility to get exactly where I need. I can't get the full depth that I need, but I'm going to be able to remove a lot of the material, and then I can finish up with a router later. Once again, I'll leave links to all this stuff in the description below. Now it's time to think about the neck pocket. Now I'm using a Telecaster neck template that I already have, and I checked and it doesn't actually match up with the Jazzmaster template that I use for making the body. So we're going to carve it out referencing off the neck template that I'm going to use to build the guitar neck in next week's video. As I do this, I feel that this was another area where I could have definitely gone wrong and realised in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm glad that I spotted it and didn't just mindlessly route out the neck pocket using the template that I'd made. It's almost like I'm learning from my mistakes and getting better at this. Almost. And with the neck pocket carved out, I can then go back and clean up all the pickup cavities and the control cavity and make sure everything's nice and flush with the router. So the top is still all scuffed up and pretty dull from all the sanding back, but we are past the danger point. We've got all the cavities carved out, so now we can start to think back to binding. So I'm going to attach the binding just using CA glue. Normally when I do it, I actually use the acetone method to melt the plastic onto the wood. I even filmed this thinking it was how I was going to go again this time. But then I thought, if the acetone melts the plastic, what's it going to do to the resin? Had a quick Google. Needless to say, we're going with super glue this time. Another close call, but another save for my big boy brain. As I work my way around the guitar, I'm actually just going to prop up the side nearest to me that I'm working on, just to help the glue sit into the channel that I've made, and I'm going to go bit by bit, adding the binding and then sticking it in and then holding it down with tape. It'd be a great time to have some super glue accelerator, but I haven't got any to hand, so we're going with tape. Got to say, adding the binding to guitars is often my favourite part of the process. It's really easy to do, quite simple and straightforward, but it makes a big difference to the finish, so just kind of switch off and work my way around. Now that's the binding on, I pulled all the tape off and it's just time to start thinking about buffing this back and trying to get some sort of shine on it. Now I've run out of higher grit sanding pads, so at the minute I'm doing it by hand. I very quickly regret this and I'm going to finish this off over the next few days. So if you want to see how this turns out, you're going to have to tune in next week when I'm going to be adding the neck, and hopefully I'll have this looking a bit more shiny and a bit more finished. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to see how I made the fabric top, I'll put a link here now so you can go check it out.